This is Learning Coherence, Chapter 9, a series on the architecture underneath professional learning plans. This chapter, the decision record, and why every decision with recorded rationale is a gift. Chapter 9, the decision record. This is the layer that most organizations don't build, and the more time I've spent with this work, the more I think it's the one that matters most. The decision layer records three things: what got adopted, what got declined, and what got deferred. And each outcome includes rationale that references specific evidence and interpretation. Not, we decided to prioritize coaching, but we decided to prioritize coaching because convergent feedback from educators across 4 departments identified coaching support as the highest impact resource. And this aligns with theory of action hypothesis T2, which predicts that sustained observation cycles produce practice change at Gusky level 4. That level of specificity isn't bureaucracy, it's decision traceability. 2 years from now, when someone asks, why did we invest in coaching instead of curriculum materials? The answer isn't, I think someone decided that, or it was in the strategic plan somewhere. The answer is in the record, with the reasoning, the evidence, and the alternative options that were considered. There are 2 fields in the decision record that matter more than they might seem. Dissent notes. The record preserves disagreement, not just consensus. If someone on the steering committee pushed back, if they argued that coaching resources should go to curriculum alignment instead, that pushback is part of the institutional record, a structural field that says here's what was debated, and the debate matters as much as the conclusion. Why does preserved dissent matter? Because disagreement is often data about the next decision. The concern that got outvoted in year 1 might become the central issue in year 2. When the dissent is preserved, the institution can learn from its own debates. When the dissent is averaged into consensus, that learning is lost. Tradeoff notes. These make explicit what was weighed against what, the reasoning, not the conclusion alone. We prioritize coaching over curriculum materials because the behavior goals in the plan require sustained observation support, and curriculum alignment can be addressed through existing collaborative planning structures. That's a trade-off. It names what was chosen, what was not chosen, and why. The next planning team doesn't have to guess. These 2 fields, dissent and trade-offs, are where decisional capital accumulates. Fullan uses the term decisional capital, the wisdom practitioners build through accumulated judgment. In his framing, it's experiential. It lives in the practitioner. It develops over careers and through practice. My argument, and this is where I extend Fullan rather than just apply him, is that when the reasoning behind decisions is structural, traceable, and annotated, decisional capital becomes transferable. The next person who inherits your role doesn't start from a filing cabinet of decisions. They start from an annotated record where every entry explains why, what was decided, what was debated, what was declined, and the reasoning for each. Every decision with recorded rationale is a gift to the person who inherits your role. There's a tension in this. The architecture asks organizations to do things that are uncomfortable, naming the decision model before you know how the consultation will go, preserving dissent alongside consensus, documenting why you declined something with the same rigor. These require leaders willing to say, here's where we disagreed with the feedback, and here's our reasoning. And that's harder than based on feedback. We have decided. I don't know yet where the ceiling is. The architecture provides the structure. The institutional culture determines whether people use it honestly. A school that records dissent but sanitizes it hasn't engaged with the design. A school that names the decision model but changes it retroactively hasn't engaged either. The system can make the right behavior possible. It can't make it happen. But when it works, when a school runs a consultation, validates the synthesis, records the decisions with rationale and dissent and trade-offs, something happens that I think is rare in institutional governance. The stakeholders who contributed get a transparency report. The transparency report goes back to everyone who submitted input. Here's what we heard. Here's what we're doing and why. Here's what we're not doing and why not. Here's what we're deferring and when we'll revisit it. A teacher who reads that report and sees their concern addressed, even if the decision went the other way, experiences something different from, thank you for your feedback. They experience inclusion in the governance of their own profession. And the next time feedback is requested, they show up. Not because they agreed with the last decision, because they saw what happened with their input. The process earned its credibility not by agreeing with stakeholders, but by showing them the chain. One more structural piece before we close the governance arc. The system generates stakeholder variant reports from the same canonical plan. A teacher brief that surfaces instructional implications and support commitments. A leadership brief that surfaces implementation status and what needs attention. A board brief that surfaces strategic rationale, governance traceability, and top-line. These aren't three separately written documents that might drift apart over time. They're three views of the same architecture. When the plan updates, all three reports update. When a decision is recorded, all three audiences can see the rationale through their own lens. The teacher sees what changes in their practice. The board sees what changes in the strategic posture. Leadership sees what to act on next. The governance arc closes here. Evidence, interpretation, decision, each layer traceable, each layer honest about what it